Welcome back everyone. So it's been a while since the last video. Some life things happened, so it kind of prevented me from uploading. But we're back, and the first video we're going to be back with is a video on Novo Nordisk. So we'll take a look at it again, see what's been going on with the company. In this video I wanted to cover Novo's latest earnings, which were on the 5th of November. Some major news surrounding Novo, and then we'll take a look at the valuation at the end. So just before we get into all of that, the last time we looked at Novo, which was at the end of September, I believe, it was a 16% position in the portfolio. Now it's a 19% position as I've kept buying in as the stock kept dipping. And I think right now I'm happy with the sizing of this position. I probably won't be buying anymore and just trying to accumulate cash over the next couple of weeks, and then look for other opportunities. So jumping into the Q3 report of Novo, Novo reported the first 9 months of 2025's earnings, and it came in at 12% growth for net sales. Operating profit came in at 5% growth, net profit at 4%, and then similarly diluted earnings per share came in at 4% growth. So the important thing to note with this is operating profit would have been higher if it wasn't for the restructuring costs. So they did lay off about 9,000 employees, and with that comes severance packages and stuff like that. So they do note here that had Novo not incurred such restructuring costs accounting to around 9 billion DKK, operating profit would have increased by 15%. So that's just one thing to keep a note with operating profit. They also reported lower expectations for 2025. The issue with this was that it was the third quarter in a row of them lowering expectations, which the stock did react negatively to. So they reported that the sales growth would be between 8 to 11% for 2025, at least that's what they expect, in comparison to the previous expectations of 8 to 14%. Sales growth was reported to come in at 4% lower, and operating profit is reported to come in between 4% to 7% instead of 4% to 10%. So, in general, the Q3 report was lukewarm. It came below expectations, and the stock did react negatively to all of this news. Moving on to some of the news surrounding Novo. So Novo has had a couple of things happening to it since we last looked at the stock. We'll start off with the deal with the US government. So Novo and Eli Lilly did strike a deal with the US government to slash weight loss drug prices. So this is for all US customers. They're slashing prices for cash payers, and then they will also be including the drugs within the Medicare and Medicaid schemes at lower prices. And this is expected to have a low digit impact on sales, but it isn't a good look for pricing power as it shows that Novo isn't really in control when it comes to that. The other thing was the board shakeup. So in October, I think it was October 21st, um, it was announced that there was an intention to replace board members. This shows a lot of uncertainty with the company, and they cited the reason for being that they couldn't agree as to whether or they couldn't agree as to the direction Novo should be taking. So they announced that on the, I think it was 14th, that they will be doing a vote to elect other members for the board, and subsequently the stock price has fallen 12% since that announced shakeup. Another thing was the bidding war with Pfizer that Novo recently had. So Novo wanted to acquire a company called Metsera to bolster their position in the weight loss space. However, they did so by submitting an offer at a late stage while Pfizer was already in the process of making a deal to acquire Metsera. So looking here, Novo, the maker of Wegovy and Ozempic, decided to drop out of the running for Metsera on Saturday after Pfizer matched its latest offer in a takeover battle that had caused concern the bidders might be overpaying for an unproven asset. Adding to Novo's obstacles, Metsera said it got a call from the US Federal Trade Commission flagging potential regulatory risks with the proposed Novo deal structure. So Novo did submit a very late offer here, and it did get flagged with the US Trade Commission, which was another potential risk of getting sued over this. So Novo did pull out of this whole thing, and really only time will tell if by pulling out of this, Novo end up creating another competitor for them in the weight loss space with Pfizer. But I guess we'll have to see how it goes. Okay, so let's move on to some of the positives that we could be looking at in terms of Novo. So, starting off with the approval of the oral weight loss drug, which was submitted to the FDA recently. So, it's supposed to be hopefully approved by the end of Q4 2025 or Q1 2026. So, this will be a positive tailwind for the company. The next thing would be any positive outcome from any of the drugs for other treatments in the pipeline. This would show some diversification from the reliance on the GLP-1 market, even though it's still expected to be the highest revenue generating segment for Novo. It would still be good to see some other treatments come through. Another thing would be revised positive guidance in the next report. So this one's kind of like anything that can show any positivity in terms of revenue, operating profit in 2026 will be a good catalyst for the stock for that year, and then more stability in 2026. So we've had a lot of things happen to Novo this year. We've had the restructuring, new CEO, new board members. So hopefully having all of that past them in 2026 should create more stability, and the company can be more aligned. And then finally, the probably the most positive thing for Novo going forward is that they are poised to be a major winner in the GLP-1 market. So we did look at this graphic previously, and the GLP-1 market is expected to grow to like around $156 billion by 2030, and Novo is expected to be a big winner in this space. They are expected to have like around 50 billion in revenue just coming from this segment by then. So putting on top of that other revenue from other segments, revenue should grow quite a bit by 2030. Coming on to the valuation of Novo, so let's take a look here on Qualtrim. Novo is sitting at $47 for the stock price. Market cap is at 210 billion, and then the forward PE is at 12 over here. And then we can see here that the stock has been hammered in 2025, down 52% year to date. The revenue has been growing at double digits for the last 10 years. It's at 45 billion for 2024 and is expected to come in at around like 49 billion for 2025. So it's still growing. EPS is also expected to grow slightly this year. It's at $3.5 and should come in at like 3.7. As well as that, we can look at the shares outstanding. They are still buying back shares, so this will be going down as well. And if we do a DCF calculation, let's take into account that the revenue has been growing at 12% in the last 10 years. Um, and then bring that down a little bit. We'll take that down to EPS and make it like 10%. If we expect it to grow at 10% for the next 5 years roughly, and then I think Novo does deserve a higher multiple. We'll put it at 15. We can see that the share price can grow up to $93 by 2030, so almost doubling. And I think that would be a good return for Novo if this ends up being the case. If we take some more optimistic outlooks on the EPS growth, let's say it ends up being like 14 and the multiple is 20, which looking at Eli Lilly's multiple is it's very high. Um, this might not be too outlandish, but you can see that the stock price can go up to $150 by 2030. And then finally, we can take a look here. I was looking at Meta earlier. Novo Nordisk. we can see the dislocation here between the earnings and the stock price. It's pretty big, so I think this presents a great value proposition for Novo at this current stage. And I'm thinking it's still a buy for someone that's not in the stock. And yeah, I think that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.